What it is, what is up, welcome back to my channel. It's a wrap, aka Yuppies here, and on this channel we talk about books, mainly by Black authors. And if that's your thing, stick around so you can hear about the books I've recently been reading and I'm currently reading. Okay. So I don't want to consider this an October wrap up because my last wrap up I think was in September. So this is more of like a, let's call it, was my last one a summer wrap up? Let's call this a fallish wrap up. These are the books that I've read over the past 2 months. I have 6 in total, 2 audiobooks, the rest are physical books. And then I have 2 current reads that I'm like halfway through that I'm just gonna give my short little opinion on because I've read enough to like give you guys an idea of how I'm enjoying them. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. First, I'm going to start off with the audiobooks. The first book I have is Loving Donovan by Bernice McFadden. So I actually ended up listening to this audiobook by mistake. And I actually meant to listen to a Terry McMillan audiobook. Don't ask how I ended up with nowhere. I think the forward actually is by Terry McMillan, which is why I accidentally got Loving Donovan instead of a Terry McMillan novel in audiobook. But Loving Donovan is a book that I've always seen when I used to frequent the library, and I just never picked it up. This story follows Donovan and Campbell, and it follows them from childhood up until like current moment when they meet and, you know, their relationship. And man, this one really left an impression on me, and it made me wonder why I waited so long to listen to this novel. It's not really a love story, but it's a story about like relationships and our traumas and the things that we bring into our relationships that we never address, you know, like ourselves. And pretty much Donna, like when you're reading the novel, you, without giving away too much, you pretty much are like dreading the fact that, you know, from following them individually from like childhood to this current moment that they meet, you know, all of the trauma, all of the things that they've kind of like put under the rug, or what they're bringing to the table that could possibly make this relationship challenging if they don't address it. And it's kind of like we're reading the book as a bird's eye view of like when they meet and they think they're in love with each other. And, you know, they definitely seem to have love for each other, but it's like they almost can't get out of their own way, mostly Donovan, but they really can't get out of their own way, or they're poking at each other's traumas and things like that. And they can't get over that hill because they aren't personally aware of the things that they carry, or even if they are personally aware, they don't have like the wherewithal to get over that hump, or to talk through it, or to realize that, man, me disappearing like this is my trauma response to this, or me being angry is my response to this. And instead of like, oh man, let me stop, know that I'm making this response because of this, they just start like, let me hide, like let me because I'm trying to forget the hurtful things. And even though you're not forgetting, like you're wearing it on your sleeve, and you're struggling to connect with people, or you're struggling to have a relationship that could possibly be beautiful because you can't get past these guards that you've put up because of past hurt. And it just was so good seeing that, man, like seeing a relationship and the demise of a relationship. And it was almost like a therapist wrote it. It was it was very therapeutic, just seeing both point of views and them not really knowing their past and what they're coming with, but us as the reader knowing. And when they're together, when they get into arguments, or when their relationship starts to break down, you can already pinpoint that, oh, it's breaking down because he's responding from this hurt or from this, and she doesn't know that. And because he hurt her, she's responding from this hurt that she has, and they both can't get past it. But they could get past it if they were able to get past their own way and know each other's past and see where each other is coming from. It's just a lot. But also it makes you realize like relationships is hard, because like not only are you trying to like communicate with each other, but you're trying to like navigate your own personal difficulties of difficulties. I'm going to say difficulties of like communicating, of self-awareness. Like there's a sense of self-awareness that like, man, if he can't be self-aware of this, there's no way like he can let somebody else in, because how can somebody else come in and know, if you're not even self-aware enough to bring that to the table for another person to navigate with you, if that makes sense. But either way, Loving Donovan left a really big impression on me, and I just enjoyed it so much. And it's definitely one of my favorite reads of this year, even though I believe it came out in like the early 2000s. So I don't know why I waited so long to listen to this or to read this book, but man, it was good. It was good. Is this a love story? The ending was like, whew, the ending was a lot. But yeah, definitely, if you haven't read Loving Donovan, just, if you've always seen the book and you're all like, whatever, I'm gonna just keep moving on, pick it up and read it. It was a good time. Okay, the next audiobook I have was A Time. And this one actually kind of had me in a chokehold. It's A Piece of Cake by Cupcake Brown. And I don't know what made, like, this is another book with Loving Donovan that I always saw when I was in the library, or I've just always seen, but never thought to pick up. And the audiobook was available, so I just picked up the audiobook from Libby and I listened to it. And oh my goodness, like, I'm just like, is this a real story? And then I started searching Cupcake Brown. And interestingly, before I get into that aside, Cupcake Brown is a memoir of Cupcake and the trials and tribulations that she has gone through foster care, through her really, like, it was heavy, a really heavy relationship with like drug abuse, and how she comes to turn her life around and become a lawyer. So yeah, but I got so like invested in the story, like, man, is Cupcake gonna come out? Like, how did she become a lawyer? You just wonder, how it ends, but you're wondering, like, how did she end up as a lawyer? Like, you just wouldn't imagine. But anyway, I was looking for interviews and I saw that she was on the Tyra Banks show. And man, talk about Tyra's show used to be cruel, and also maybe it's a cruelness because she, like, I'm like, if you had read the book, you would have not been so callous in your questioning of this woman and what she's been through. You would have handled it with more care. And that is, looking back at Tyra in that 2000s era, what was Tyra missing then? Care. Definitely not a part of her politic. But Cupcake's story is just really like, woo. I wonder, I'm like, oh my gosh, does this all really happen? And also Wild Times, I think she was born in like the 70s, so this has to be like the 80s. But she goes through so much from, from the relationship with her father, the parental figures in her life, to her going through the foster care system, to when she's out of or the times that she runs away, and then her, like, at one point she's like in a gang, and it's just not one point, but like sporadic times throughout her life she's in prostitution, and it's just like a really wild ride. That's all I have to say. A long, wild ride, and I was in it from beginning to end. So yeah, if another one that I like slept on, but if you've also been sleeping on it, all the trigger warnings, just throw all the trigger warnings. But it was very like, what a listen. So those are the two audiobooks that I have, and the rest are physical. So let's get into it. Okay, the first one I have, this is actually a reread, Salvage the Bone by Jesmyn Ward. So I went to an event with Jesmyn Ward, and I was like, let me reread Salvage the Bone, because I read it, when did this come out? Like 2012? I know it came out a while ago. 2011. Okay, because I was like, I know I read this in high school, and I was just like, I wasn't into it. So I gave it another read, you know, in adulthood. And man, did I have just a new perspective on this book. But also, you know, since, I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school, but but you know, I've gone through life, and I think I have a different understanding of like myself and womanhood. And just in case you aren't aware of the storyline for Salvage the Bone, so Salvage the Bone is based in Louisiana during the time of Hurricane Katrina. And Etch and her family are, there's one story where her dog is, you know, has birthed this litter, and the litter is like slowly dying off. And then also there's a hurricane coming, Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina is like quickly coming, or not quickly, it's coming throughout the week, and it's slowly building up as also this story is building up. And then the third thing is Etch is pregnant. So there's like these three things going on, and rereading it this time around, it's just, yeah, it's just really pretty. It's pretty prose. It like really sits with you, and the tension of like Esh and her like family dynamic and her desire for like love. It just, yeah, it just read completely differently now than it did when I was younger, and I was just all like, I don't get it. You know, Salvage the Bone, again, it's been on so many lists for the 2010s decade, best books and so forth. So if you haven't read it, give it a read, especially if you have read it in the past and then set it down, you know, pick it back up. So I've read one of the books on my 10 reads before the end of the year. I'm proud of myself. I'm actually, I think I have, yeah, you'll see in my current reads. But anyway, this is Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi. I love this cover. I also picked up this book at Cafe Con Libros when I was in Brooklyn. Little Rot is by Akwaeke Emezi, and it follows multiple stories, but the main story is Kalu and Ima are a couple that have been together forever. They moved from the United States to, in the book it's New Lagos, but they moved to Lagos together, and Ima, since she's been in Lagos with Kalu, has this desire to be married to Kalu. Like before, they were just all like, we're okay on our time. We're okay on our time. I don't really need to be married right now. But Kalu is like over it. She's ready to get married. If Kalu's not ready to get married, she's all like, I'm done. I'm out. So the story begins is she's leaving. She's at the airport. Kalu is like, Kalu, if you don't marry me, pretty much the ultimate, if you don't marry me, I'm leaving. And Kalu has nothing to say. So they break up. And in that, like in the spiral of the breakup, like a whole bunch of crazy stuff happens. And yeah, ultimately it goes into the underbelly of Lagos and the upper class, I guess we can say. And it's like, there's so many things I can say. Like it's queer and kinky and gory, and then there's a touch of like corruption, and but man, it's a really fast read. I don't even think it's that long. It's like 200 something pages. At the end, woo, what can you say? They're all like, Lagos is a crazy place and it can suck you in. That's what I'm just like, that's kind of what I ended up getting. I mean, I got more than that, but still, I can see why people struggle to like tell people what this book is about, because all I can say is I like this more than You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, because in You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, I really wasn't invested in the relationships, and it was promoted as a romance, and I was just all like, baby, this is just chaotic. I don't want nobody to be together. I just want them all to be alone. But Little Rot is not promoted as a romance. I don't know what it's promoted as, and I kind of like it. I think I like Little Rot a lot better. But yeah, Little Rot, I enjoyed it. Okay, the next book I have is Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow by Damilare Kuku. Is it Kuku? Yeah, Kuku. She also wrote Nearly All the All the Men in Lagos Are Mad, and it's like a set of short stories, and I'm probably going to end up getting that book because this also kind of is another book that has multiple perspectives, and it kind of read like a short story, but it was like one cohesive story split up into multiple. I just feel like her short stories will probably be awesome. This follows Temi, who father has just passed away and left inheritance, I believe, and Temi wants to get a BBL with the money, and it causes like a big stir amongst the women in the family. And from that, it splits off into the stories of each of the women, her sister, her mother, and her 2 aunts. And I won't give the ending away, but like through all of their stories, we learn all of these women's secrets, and ultimately it's like, who are they to judge? It's definitely like a interesting book about womanhood, about secrets that we keep, secrets that are probably worthwhile sharing, you know, especially within this familiar setting, to give the other generations like the strength to like face society, but instead like they hold on to these secrets and live in quietness and shame and a need to like conform in order to survive. But also like, yeah, we learn that these secrets are also, they hold on to it to survive, which is almost like a sign of strength. But anyway, yeah, we learn these women's strengths, we learn these women's secrets, and pretty much ultimately is like, who are you to judge? But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And I'm going to have to go ahead and order Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. Okay, I think I've had everything positive to say about the last 5 books. But the last one is Chain Gang All-Stars. Chain Gang All-Stars. This one has had a lot of attention and hype, and the author has been on multiple big interviews, and I had a friend that also read it, and she was like, she really enjoyed it. I struggled, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie. I struggled, and maybe because dystopian-esque novels just aren't for me, and that's why I struggled. And also, I'm not gonna lie, I usually struggle with multiple perspectives, especially if it isn't done succinctly. A lot of the times I was struggling to one, get a hold on the different perspectives and keep along with the story. And I was just like, am I dumb? I wondered if I was dumb. Like, ultimately, did I get the story? Yes, but I feel like I didn't get the punch. Not me punching the camera. I didn't get the punch because I was struggling to keep along with the story than just absorbing and enjoying the story. So Chain Gang All-Stars is a battle royale with inmates. And I think it's Cape. Is it Cape? Which is like a subsect of like the prison industry, but it's privatized, and they take these inmates and put them in pretty much into this battle royale where they duke it out until the death. And if they win and make it to the end, they end up being able to be released back into society. Is this giving the book away? But Thurwar and Hendrix are like in the same team, ultimately like lovers. And they learn that they have to fight each other. And there's a whole bunch of things going on, like them having to learn they fight each other. And yeah, hopefully I didn't give this book away. But it was just, it was a lot. And there was just a lot of, there were footnotes in here. There was a lot of points about the prison industrial complex. And it was just so much that I was just like, I couldn't really sit down and truly enjoy the book. Kind of disappointed to be like, this wasn't really my favorite and I really struggled. But does it make really poignant points about the prison industrial complex? Yes. And I know some people would like it. It just wasn't for me. All right. And then lastly, I have 2 books that I'm currently reading. One of them is an ebook. This one is another Takerra Allen joint. That's what I'm going to say. Takerra Allen joint. And it's Parachutes. I finally started reading Parachutes. I wanted to hold off until like the second book came out. So yeah, the second book came out I think in June. So I've been reading 1 and I'm like 50% in. Parachutes is the story of Donovan, who goes by Vin, and Tali. And when we meet them in the book, they've been married for, I think, like a decade, like a little, like maybe 14 or 15 years. And they have like 3 kids together. And it's the holidays. Dalvin is he's away doing some work, but you know, he's on his way back, or maybe he's leaving. But anyway, so Tali is in the house. She's chilling. She hears a knock on the door. She thinks it's her man. It is, in fact, not her man. It's a child. It's a child who is apparently Dalvin's son. Dalvin's son, who's 11, and her oldest is like 14. So she's like, hold up. What do you mean? And yeah, we kind of leave her there, kind of like, what the hell? And then it goes back and tells the story of how Tali and Dalvin meet. So yeah, ultimately, I always have a good time with Takerra Allen. I feel like she's just like the best writer. How I feel about Takerra Allen is how I feel, actually maybe more, how I feel about Love Belvin, and she's also someone who does multiple parts, but they just really have very round characters. Like, they're really getting there with their characters. Like, these are living, breathing people. And I just love Takerra Allen's characters. I love the way she writes. I love how she tells a story, and she really gives us like the depth of their story, and like the good, the bad, the ugly. And they're never perfect characters. Like, sometimes I hate these characters. Like, not that I hate, but I just don't really care for them. But man, they're just really like living human beings in my eyes, and I get so sucked in. So yes, I'm currently sucked into Parachutes, and I'm excited to get into part 2, and also excited to know what the hell is going on with the son. Where did he come from? I mean, obviously he came from a woman, but like, what was going on with this woman and Dalvin? Because when you read it, you're all like, man, they are really like invested and in love, almost in a not toxic, but like codependent way. In a way that's just, I'm just like, ooh, this is kind of not healthy. But anyway, let me save my commentary for the wrap up. That's one book I'm currently reading. And the next book I'm currently reading, another book on my 10 before the end list, Triumph of the Yuppies by Tom McGrath. And this is like an essay nonfiction work, and it follows the 80s and the subculture of yuppies. And man, this is just, when you break down the yuppie like era, you have to talk about economics, you have to talk about class, you have to talk about race, and Tom McGrath is really breaking it down. Like, he's telling you like the generation that the yuppies come from, what, you know, 20 years prior up until now, not even more than 20 years prior, the transformation that the nation is going through, with this generation of like the yuppies, their generation, which is baby boomers, what they've lived through, their feelings. It goes into like the what was happening in these big cities that these yuppies are moving into. You know, the inception, not the inception, but the real beginnings. We always think gentrification. I think we think mostly of like which is only a decade after, but we think mostly like, I think like mid 90s. For me, specifically mid 90s, because I'm from the DMV. And DC is a very heavily gentrified city, and we mostly associate it with, you know, Clinton and his whole initiative to clean up the city. So when I think of deep gentrification, I think of like mid 90s to early, you know, 2000s up until now. But really, you know, Tom goes into, man, gentrification, like, it's real. It really starts like in the 80s, and he really goes into like what's going on, what was happening to these cities before with white flight. Especially, I also, you know, I currently live in Baltimore, and you still very much see the effects of white flight in the city, because there are still some very big nice homes that were abandoned, you know, in the 60s and so forth. But anyway, he really goes like in depth, baby, in depth. Like, each chapter, he's building the case. He's building the case of we think of like the yuppies in this 80s, you know, just this period of time. I mean, the same thing with like hippie culture, or, you know, he really expands to like no, we still see the effects of this era right now. We still see the thought of like the yuppie culture, the way that we look at economics and, like society, cities, and so forth, how that thought, that outlook has followed us into this current point for better or worse. This is such, I think, a very timely book to read because I'm reading this, I actually started reading it a couple of days after the election. And when you're just like, man, yeah, this is like currently what we're living through. This is currently what we're like battling, and to see that the seeds of the 80s and just getting like a historical perspective of how we could be here right now it's fascinating. It's super fascinating. I'm having a very good time with this. I think I was looking at Tom McGrath's bio, and he also wrote a book about MTV, and I think it being part of a revolution. I might check that out because I'm just interested in the perspective. But yeah, Triumph of the Yuppies, having a great time. And honestly, I've just been having I don't know if I've had a very amazing year of like reads that really stuck with me. Even it's been an okay reading year. Yeah, either way, I still love to hear what you guys are reading because ultimately I will read it, and most definitely I'm going to buy it because I feel like it's a cute little community here and y'all don't lead me astray. So until the next time, guys, deuces.